Hello, I am Trevor Medeiros, and for my signature assignment, I will be going over agriculture and climate change. For those of you who are unaware of what climate change is dealing with the warming of the Earth and the Earth's average temperature. It is responsible for rising sea levels, for melting glaciers, and for increased temperatures. Now, this can have a variety of effects, mainly negative effects, especially for those in the agricultural industry. Climate change is the result of fossil fuels such as oil, gas, and coal that have been burnt by cars and factories. As a result from burning these fossil fuels, the Earth's average year-round temperature is rising. These increased temperatures have the possibility of more severe weather, including heat waves and droughts. These effects can have quite an impact on agriculture because of the changing climate. Plants could have a significantly harder time growing, which could result in price increases. Earth's water cycle will have more droughts and floods due to irregular temperatures and increased temperatures. Looking at the bigger picture, if crops become harder to grow and cost more to maintain, the cost to feed livestock will increase, thus increasing the cost of meat. CO2 will become more prevalent in Earth's atmosphere within the next 30 to 50 years. Earth's average temperatures are set to reach 1 to 2 more degrees above where it currently sits within the next 30 to 50 years. The ethic that would be applied to climate change's effects on the Earth would have to be utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is an ethic that deals with the best possible outcome for a situation. The happiness of all is what's considered most when making a decision. The effects of climate change are already having a negative effect on our Earth. Changes are being made to reduce climate change's effects. There are ways for crops to adapt to the changes with the help of researchers. This is where the utilitarian ethic comes into play, with researchers finding ways to help plants and crops which benefit everyone. One example of what researchers are currently working on is breeding crops to become more tolerant to rising temperatures. Another example of this ethic that comes into play is the development of cropping systems. These different cropping systems would allow several different plants to grow at the same time. With the work of researchers, climate change's effects could be slowed and crops could adapt to the changes. There are very few pros when it comes to the topic of climate change in agriculture. Although the majority of impacts climate change has on the Earth would be considered negative, there are some regions around the Earth that could benefit from its effects. For regions that struggle with growing crops and lower temperatures, there could be a substantial benefit to the rising temperatures because the crops could have an easier time growing. With an increased amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere due to climate change, crops are projected to become more efficient with water use. Increased levels of carbon dioxide will also help some species of plants stimulate growth. There are certainly more cons than pros. There are several major cons that are a result of climate change and the impacts it will have on the agricultural industry. One of the primary consequences would be the economic impact it would have. Prices for crops like wheat, corn, maize, rice, and soybeans could all see an increase. As a result of this increase, the price to feed livestock would also have to increase. With increased prices for feeding livestock, in return, meat prices would also have to increase to cover the new expenses. Another major consequence that will be a result from climate change would be crop biodiversity. Crops could be severely impacted due to climate change's effects. Crops could have a significantly harder time surviving long term due to the decrease in crop biodiversity. Maintaining farms and crop fields will require more water due to increased temperatures. The all-around cost to maintain crops could be moderately increased. Another effect that climate change has on crops would be increased competition from weeds for vital nutrients. Pathogens that could infect plants will also see a significant increase. Insects could potentially have longer seasons than before, which could damage crops long term. Insect damage to crops could render them useless due to climate change's effects.